Hello and welcome to the big story. You're watching CVR News Network and this is CVR English. Welcome to the big story with me, Sandeep. In a major escalation of the war in eastern Ukraine, Russian President Vladimir Putin has announced that Krasnoyarsk, formerly known as Pokrovsk and long regarded as one of the Ukraine's most fortified strategic positions, has fallen fully under Russian control. The city, a vital logistical and defensive hub for Kiev's forces, have been at the center of some of the heaviest fighting in the Donetsk region. Russia is portraying the capture as a turning point in the campaign. While Ukraine disputes the claim and insists that intense combat continues, the announcement comes as Putin issues one of his starkest warnings, and yet Europe and NATO declaring that Russia is prepared to fight if hostilities escalate, a statement that pushes tensions to their highest point in months and raises serious concerns about the political widening of the conflict. And this is the big story of the day. Russia claims to have captured Pokrovsk and Donetsk and Vovchansk in Kharkiv, signaling a major escalation in the war. Moscow released videos of troops raising the Russian flags as officials called the gain strategically important. Ukraine reportedly struggled for months to defend Pokrovsk, deploying a special forces as Russian troops advanced street by street. The battle left Vovchansk devastated, marking a new intensified phase of Russia's offensive pressure on Kiev. On December 2nd, 2025, Russian President Vladimir Putin publicly celebrated what Russian military leaders claimed was the full capture of Pokrovsk, a strategically important city in the Donetsk region of eastern Ukraine. According to the Russian Defense Ministry, forces from the Center Battle Group completed operations in the city, raising Russia's flag in its central square, a symbolic confirmation of the control.
Улицы, переулок Пушкина, почти подходим. Все, прошел пострел. Давай, заходим.
Это центр Красноармейска. Российская армия его зачистила.
Russian commanders told Putin that several hundred Ukrainian service members were killed in the final push. The Kremlin described the fall of Krasnoarmeysk as a major success, calling the city as a critical logistic and defensive hub for Ukrainian forces. According to Russian statements, this victory is expected to pave the way for further advances toward remaining Ukrainian-held strongholds such as Kramatorsk and Slovansk. In his remarks, Putin thanked frontline commanders and ordered continued operations and logistical preparations for winter, indicating that the capture is being treated not as the end, but as a stepping stone in Russia's broader special military operation.
Мы наблюдаем, что войска объединенной группировки наращивают давление по всей линии фронта. В последние дни действительно установлен контроль над несколькими крупными населенными пунктами, которые имеют важное значение для дальнейших действий по освобождению всей территории, в том числе и той, которая еще находится под контролем противника. Командующий группировкой войск «Центр» Валерий Николаевич в ходе нашей встречи 25 октября докладывал о окружении группировки ВСУ в районе Красноармейской Дмитровской агломерации. Валерий Николаевич, правильно я понял, начальника Генштаба, что город Красноармейск в наших руках?
Да.
Доложите, пожалуйста.
Войска группировки «Центр» продолжают выполнять задачи по разгрому противника на Днепропетровском направлении в соответствии с замыслом, утвержденным Генеральным штабом Вооруженных сил Российской Федерации. На Красноармейском направлении 2-я армия силами 30-й отдельной мотострелковой бригады, 506-м, 439-м, 1435-м мотострелковыми полками 27-й гвардейской мотострелковой дивизии завершили освобождение города Красноармейск. В настоящее время идет поиск и уничтожение остатков мелких групп противника, пытающихся укрыться в городской черте. Продолжается уничтожение формирований противника в Димитрове. Южная часть города полностью освобождена, идет зачистка. Группировка противника в северной части надежно заблокирована. Попытки выйти или деблокировать эту группировку у противника успехом не увенчались. Оценочно находится от 1500 до 2000 человек, заблокированные в северной части города. Противник предпринимает неоднократные попытки для деблокирования, а также старается вырваться с города, но успеха, как уже доложил, не было. Все атаки отбиваются, прорыва не допускается. Группировкой войск
Russia has declared full control of Pokrovsk, with President Vladimir Putin praising the city's reported capture. However, Ukrainian forces say they still hold the northern part and fighting continues. Once a strategic logistics hub, Pokrovsk now lies in ruins, as before and after images reveal the scale of destruction. In response to the Russian declaration, Ukrainian officials have not officially confirmed the loss of the city. Multiple reports from Ukrainian military leadership insist that fighting continues in and around the city and that Russian claims are part of information warfare. A top Ukrainian commander described efforts to block new Russian assault on Pokrovsk and neighboring towns like North, claiming that Russia has been forced to bring in reserves to sustain the offensive. Meanwhile, combat units reportedly conducted raids in parts of the city, especially around the train station area, suggested that control on the ground remains contested in some pockets. While Russia claims a complete takeover, Ukrainian authorities maintain that resistance continues, implying the situation remains fluid and hard to verify. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said he sees a little bit of optimism surrounding ongoing peace efforts, pointing to the increasing pace of negotiations and the renewed U.S. engagement in diplomatic channels. Speaking at an event during his visit to Dublin, Zelensky emphasized that Washington appears committed to continuing dialogue aimed at resolving the conflict with Russia.
Can I ask you to be upstanding and give a warm round of applause to Taoiseach Micheál Martin and Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Thank you so much
for your bravery and your fortitude in the face.
It is with real great pleasure to introduce now on stage His Excellency Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky. Please join us. Thank you so much. Thank you for being here.
Really, between us, it's very difficult to comment the words of leader of Russia because he really doesn't want to finish this war because he didn't get all the goals what he wanted at the very beginning of this aggression. He wanted to destroy us totally, our freedom, our people, but he really been very surprised. Everybody understands who knows him and who doesn't. And that he didn't get any real goal what he wanted. Putin, I mean, now he's thinking how to find new reasons not to finish this war. And we count on pressure from the United States and the people of the world. I think so. They are a very strong country. And they said that we have to work on this plan and they will pressure on both sides. Of course, we wanted them to be more on our side, but okay, mediator. So, and they began to pressure both sides and we supported the ideas. It's a little bit optimism was in my words because of some speed of negotiations and from American side, their interest in it. It showed that America is not withdrawing now from any kind of diplomatic way of dialogue, and it's good. And it's been that they gave us a signal, so it's about negotiations. If you're ready, we will work. They've got these signals from us, but this is where we are. I mean, for me, it's nothing new. The words of Putin, not new, but we have to hope. We not just hope, we hope and work, hardly work each day. And we hope, of course, because we want peace. That's why it's optimism. I think this is realism. We need to bring peace closer. Yes, we tried our best and it worked and it works still.
The significance of Krasnoyarsk for Ukraine's defense lies in its role as a logistical and defensive hub. For years, the city served as a critical node linking frontline positions across Donetsk, facilitating movements of troops, supplies, and reinforcement. Its loss would disrupt Ukrainian supply lines, jeopardize defensive belts, and create operational challenges across the broad front. Analysts argue that the fall of the city could create a gap in Ukraine's fortified belt in Donetsk, a rupture that might allow Russian forces to advance further into terrorist territories previously considered more secure, potentially extending towards regions along the Dnipro River. Russia appears to treat the capture as a strategic anchor for further offenses, not just a symbolic win. Officials said that the city will serve as a base for upcoming operations, and the control over the city will give Russian forces greater flexibility across multiple fronts. However, the city is damaged beyond its recognition. Russian President Vladimir Putin announced that Krasnoyarsk, once one of the most heavily fortified Ukrainian positions in the Donetsk region, is now fully under Russian control. The city, formerly known as Pokrovsk, has long been regarded as a critical logistical and defensive hub for Ukrainian forces. In the wake of the city's capture, Putin also delivered a stark warning to European powers and NATO, declaring that Russia is prepared for war if Europe initiates conflict. He stated that any attempt to start a war would be met with overwhelming Russian response, leaving no chance for future negotiations.
Предавалось и предается и украинской стороной, и российскими вооруженными силами действительно особое значение, потому что этот город является как бы не просто большим инфраструктурным объектом, связанным с целой сетью средств сообщения с регионом, но самое главное заключается в том, что в целом, выражаясь, так скажем, военным языком, это хороший плацдарм для решения всех задач, поставленных в начале специальной военной операции. То есть отсюда, с этого плацдарма, с этого участка российской армии удобно двигаться во всех направлениях, которые сочтет наиболее перспективными Генеральный штаб. Вот именно поэтому он и украинской стороны всегда обозначался в качестве одного из приоритетов в Донецкой Народной Республике, но и нашими вооруженными силами тоже. Наряду с рядом других укрепрайонов. А это тоже один из мощных укрепрайонов был. А сегодня он полностью находится в руках российской армии, как вот доложил совсем недавно командующий группировкой «Центр». Вопрос этот возникает, видимо, в связи с тем, что подвергаются до сих пор сомнению, так ли это на самом деле. Но если у кого-то есть сомнения, мы уже говорили на этот счет, я уже это предлагал. А что? Предлагал, чтобы ваши коллеги иностранные и даже украинские, пожалуйста, мы украинским журналистам готовы предоставить это право, посетить город Красноармейск и убедиться своими глазами посмотреть, что там происходит, кто реально контролирует этот населенный пункт. Помню, когда мы это сделали, несколько недель назад, украинский МИД тогда выступил с предупреждением о том, что сказал о том, что МИД Украины категорически против, начал угрожать журналистам и так далее. Но сейчас МИД Украины к этому не имеет никакого отношения, поскольку город полностью находится в руках
Putin portrayed Russia's actions as Ukraine as surgical, but also made clear that this designation should not be interpreted as weakness or unwillingness to fight hard. At the same time, he accused European governments of sabotaging peace efforts and aligning themselves with what he described as an antagonistic Western agenda. He also warned of intensified military responses, including strikes on targets such as Black Sea, shipping, and critical infrastructure. A message signaling the Moscow views the conflict as extendable beyond Ukraine's borders if provoked.
Конечно. И сейчас он уже какое-то время назад. Беседа была весьма полезной, конструктивной, весьма содержательной и продолжалась не 5 минут, а 5 часов. К российско-американскому и украинскому досье, и в частности мы, естественно, с американскими коллегами обсудили содержание тех проектов, тех документов, которые американцы какое-то время назад передали в Москву, прошлись по этим документам. Мы не обсуждали конкретные формулировки, конкретные американские предложения, а обсуждали суть того, что заложено в эти американские документы, с чем
The capture of Pokrovsk holds the strategic balance in the eastern Ukraine could shift significantly. Loss of this logistical hub would force Ukrainian forces to reorganize defense lines, withdraw or redeploy units, and possibly abandon other contested areas to prevent further encirclement. The fall may also weaken morale among Ukrainian troops and civilian populations in frontline regions, especially as winter, historically a challenging season for warfare, sets in. At the same time, Putin's warning to Europe and NATO elevates the conflict strikes beyond Ukraine, raising the specter of wider confrontation or escalation. The rhetorical escalation suggests Moscow is not only seeking territorial gains but also attempting to deter Western support for Kiev by projecting readiness for border conflict. NATO chief Mark Rutte reacts to President Putin's military visuals, calling the footage terrible and highlighting Russia's monthly losses of 20,000 soldiers. He stresses the urgency of ending the meat grinder in Ukraine while backing US-led peace efforts. Rutte emphasizes that progress depends on Russia's willingness to engage.
They will be better equipped to deal with the drones which were there seen around these two key European meetings. And then the Deputy Secretary General, she was in Ukraine, I think it was now 10 days, last week. And there has also been new agreements to work with Ukraine and Ukrainian industry to even further develop our joint efforts when it comes to defense production, and particularly also when it comes to drones.
Okay, we have time for a couple more questions. We're going to go up to NTV Turkey.
Secretary General, good afternoon. I'm just in front of you here.
Yes, hi.
Good from NTV Turkey. Good afternoon. I have two questions. First is with regard to the attacks that we're witnessing in the Black Sea on shadow or ghost fleets. This is raising security concern for Turkey. So what is your point of view on the situation and what NATO can do on that topic? And my second question is that I believe that there is 3 or 4 ministries left that will pave the way to the summit in Ankara. So what will be the concrete delivery?
Indeed, Turkey, our ally Turkey, about safety in the Black Sea. And let me just say this, I really believe that this incident
On the diplomatic front, Russia might leverage its claimed gains to strengthen its bargaining position in any upcoming negotiations. especially those mediated by third parties. However, if Ukraine continues to deny any losses and mounting fighting persists in Pokrovsk and surrounding areas, as it claimed, the fog of war will make verification difficult and complicate diplomatic prospects.
You've had a walk around the city, right? Beautiful walk. It was Moscow organizing that. Together with the Moscow authorities. The Moscow authorities take pride, rightly, for what they have done for the development of Moscow in recent years. I hope you've been able to see for yourselves. Yes.
The capture of Pokrovsk, if confirmed, represents a significant tactical and symbolic victory for Russia in eastern Ukraine, undermining a key Ukrainian defensive hub and potentially opening the door for further advances. Yet, Ukrainian denials and ongoing resistance underscore how contested the situation remains on the ground. Meanwhile, Putin's aggressive warnings to Europe and NATO dramatically widen the stakes, transforming what might have seemed a localized battlefield again into a flashpoint with broader geopolitical consequences. As winter looms and diplomatic efforts continue, the coming days will be critical in determining whether this development leads to deeper escalation or compels renewed negotiations under pressure. And further, Putin is going to visit India, and he will be cheerful during his India's visit because he has achieved a major city in Ukraine, Pokrovsk. And this is the big story of the day. We'll return with yet another story in coming episodes. Keep watching CVR News English.